Most men are raised with the illusion that being nice is enough. But look around. Do the men who are respected, admired, and followed gain that status by being harmless? The harsh truth is that the world does not reward weakness. It respects strength, authority, and the presence of someone who cannot be ignored. Being a dangerous man has nothing to do with random violence. It means becoming a man with self-mastery, the courage to stand firm, and the strategy to navigate a world that constantly tries to break you. Danger is not about destruction. It's about the capacity to defend, to decide, and to dominate your own path. Think about it. Who gets promoted at work? The man who apologizes for existing, or the one who walks in with quiet confidence? Who is remembered in a relationship? The man who bends at every demand, or the one whose absence would be a loss? Respect follows the man who dares to be unshakable. Society fears men who cannot be manipulated. That's why from childhood you're told to be soft, obedient, and passive. But history has never been changed by the docile. It's always been written by those who had the courage to resist, to say no, and to use their strength wisely. This doesn't mean you must become cruel or reckless. On the contrary, the strongest men are often the kindest, because their kindness is a choice, not a weakness. They could be feared, but they decide to lead with influence. And that choice is what makes their power undeniable. Ask yourself this: how many opportunities have you lost because you were afraid of conflict? How many times did silence cost you respect? These are the moments that separate the invisible from the influential, the overlooked from the leaders. In this journey, I will reveal the principles that turn ordinary men into forces of respect. Once you understand what it means to be truly dangerous, you'll see why the world bows to those who carry both strength and strategy. And from here on, there is no turning back. Every time two men cross paths, whether they admit it or not, a silent calculation takes place. It's not always spoken, but it's felt. Do I respect this man, or do I dismiss him? This instant judgment has little to do with words, and everything to do with presence, authority, and self-control. A man who lacks confidence signals weakness before he even opens his mouth. His posture slouches, his eyes avoid contact, his energy screams insecurity. And the truth is simple: society doesn't honor insecurity. As Machiavelli hinted, those who fail to command respect will inevitably live under the command of others. This evaluation often includes the physical, but it goes far deeper. A man who trains his body, sharpens his mind, and cultivates discipline radiates confidence. He doesn't have to threaten anyone. His presence alone makes people think twice before testing him. Strength, in its visible and invisible forms, shifts the balance of respect. Picture this in a workplace. One employee walks in with his head low, voice shaky, always apologizing. Another walks in steady, eyes forward, grounded in silence. Who do you think others respect more? The difference has nothing to do with the title they carry and everything to do with the energy they project. The same principle applies to emotional control. The man who explodes at every small challenge loses influence instantly. But the man who remains calm, who measures his words even in chaos, becomes a figure others instinctively trust. His control is his weapon, and it makes him quietly dangerous. Schoolyard dynamics never disappear, they just evolve. In college, at work, in politics, you'll still find the same games of status, hierarchy, and subtle intimidation. Believing adulthood erases these dynamics is naive. The truth is that the world remains one long high school where respect is constantly measured. So the real question becomes, how do you make sure you're never the man dismissed, never the man overlooked? The answer lies in cultivating a presence so unshakable that others immediately recognize they're better off respecting you than crossing you. Fear is the invisible chain that enslaves men. The man terrified of losing his job, his relationship, or his reputation becomes an easy target for control. But the man who fears nothing to lose, he cannot be manipulated. His freedom is his weapon, and it makes him a force others instinctively respect. Employers exploit those who cling desperately to security, but when a man carries skills, vision, and options, he can't be cornered. His value isn't tied to a single paycheck, so pressure loses its grip. Respect isn't given to the compliant. It's earned by the man who can walk away without flinching. The same applies to relationships. A man who tolerates disrespect because he's terrified of being alone becomes weak in everyone's eyes. But the man who calmly says, "Enough," and walks away demonstrates authority. Ironically, by not fearing loss, he becomes more attractive because his strength commands respect. Fear is the oldest tool of manipulation. Governments, toxic bosses, even unhealthy partners use it to maintain power. But the man who builds independence, financially, emotionally, spiritually, becomes immune. He doesn't have to fight loudly. His quiet confidence tells the world, "You can't hold me hostage." Consider a negotiation. The man who begs for approval gets crumbs. The man who knows his worth and is prepared to leave sets the terms. He doesn't need threats. His lack of fear is enough. That calm readiness makes him unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. Fear keeps most men paralyzed. Fear of rejection stops them from speaking. Fear of failure keeps them from trying. But once you accept loss as part of life, fear loses its grip. And the man who isn't controlled by fear, he moves faster, strikes harder, and lives freer. This truth opens the next question. If being fearless already makes you dangerous, what happens when you become so valuable that others start fearing to lose you? That is the next level of power. True power is not just about presence, it's about absence. A man becomes truly dangerous when people realize that losing him would leave a hole impossible to fill. Respect doesn't come from threats. It comes from being the kind of man whose value is undeniable, whether he's in the room or not. A weak leader controls through fear, but once he's gone, nobody misses him. A strong leader uplifts, protects, and inspires. His presence brings order, and his absence creates chaos. That's the man others think twice before crossing, because losing him is a cost too high to pay. In relationships, the principle is the same. A man who clings or controls gains shallow respect at best. But the man who enriches his partner's life, emotionally, physically, spiritually, creates something more powerful. She doesn't fear his anger, she fears his absence. That is respect born of value, not intimidation. Think of friendships. The man who is dependable out of choice, not obligation, is always the one people treasure. When he steps away, the group feels the void. That's the difference between someone who is tolerated and someone who is irreplaceable. The latter is always respected. Philosophy reminds us, true kindness is only powerful when it comes from strength. A man capable of being feared, yet choosing to be generous, commands deeper authority. It's not weakness disguised as virtue, it's self-mastery, a deliberate decision to lead by influence rather than by force. This type of presence is magnetic. People are drawn to those whose absence they dread. It's a quiet but undeniable form of power. You don't have to boast, threaten, or manipulate. Your consistent value does the work for you. That's the kind of influence no title can buy. But if being valuable makes you dangerous, there's another shadow lurking. Men who fail to create value for themselves often turn into hidden threats, and their danger comes not from strength, but from betrayal. Not every threat comes from the strong. In fact, some of the most destructive acts come from weak men, those who envy what they cannot create. Strength may be intimidating, but weakness mixed with resentment breeds betrayal. And betrayal has toppled more empires than open battle ever did. Weak men often hide behind excuses. They say money doesn't matter or I don't care about women, while secretly burning with frustration. Instead of building themselves up, they cover their failures with lies. But the mask always slips, and when it does, their envy becomes poison. Picture this. You trust a friend around your partner. He claims he's not interested, but the moment you're gone, his eyes wander. Or think of the co-worker who insists he's not ambitious, yet he's the first to undermine you when a promotion appears. Weakness combined with desire creates betrayal in waiting. Machiavelli warned that men who lack ability but crave what others have are the most dangerous of all. A strong man challenges you directly. A weak man smiles, nods, and waits for the chance to stab you in the back. Their danger is not in confrontation, but in deception. The truly powerful man doesn't need to betray. He builds his own path, earns his own rewards, and faces life with strategy. That's why people respect him. He's not a thief of opportunities, he's a creator of them. Influence gained honestly is far stronger than influence stolen. Ask yourself, who surrounds you? Do they celebrate your victories, or do they quietly resent them? Pay attention to the patterns. The men who lack results often disguise their bitterness with fake indifference. And those are the ones most likely to betray you when the chance arises. So here lies the lesson. If weak men pose a hidden danger, then the truly powerful man must learn one skill above all, knowing when and how to say no. The shortest word in the English language may be the most powerful no. It isn't just a refusal, it's a declaration of independence. A man who cannot say no becomes a servant to everyone else's will. But the man who learns to say it with calm authority instantly commands respect. Saying no is the purest form of self-mastery. It's not rebellion for its own sake, but a boundary that protects your energy, your time, and your dignity. When you agree to everything out of fear, you shrink. When you decline firmly without anger, you expand. Authority lives in that simple decision. Think of the workplace. The weak employee accepts unpaid overtime because he fears losing favor. The strong one declines respectfully, showing he values himself. No shouting, no hostility, just a firm line. That man walks away respected, even by those who don't like him. In relationships, the same truth applies. A man who cannot say no to disrespect, manipulation, or toxicity becomes invisible in the eyes of his partner. But the one who enforces boundaries, who refuses mistreatment, earns respect. Sometimes, the most loving thing a man can do for himself is to walk away. Society often pressures you to obey blindly. Unjust rules, corrupt systems, manipulative trends. Yet the most dangerous man is the one who resists, who calmly rejects what others follow without question. His quiet refusal is a revolution in itself. Temptations are another battlefield. Quick money, cheap thrills, empty validation, these are traps. Every time you say no to them, you strengthen your character. Each rejection builds an invisible fortress around your soul. And eventually, that fortress becomes unbreakable. A man who can say no is a man who cannot be bought, and that principle raises an even bigger question. What happens when danger itself becomes monopolized by the wrong kind of men? Look around today, and you'll notice something unsettling. Danger often belongs only to the corrupt, the violent, and the unjust. They hold the streets, they occupy high offices, they dictate the rules. And that's the tragedy. When only the wicked are dangerous, the good are left powerless. History makes this clear. In every age, when strong men of integrity refused to act, evil men stepped in. A neighborhood without protectors falls into the hands of criminals. A company without principled leaders becomes ruled by manipulators. A nation without brave citizens surrenders to corrupt rulers. This imbalance is deadly because it normalizes injustice. If danger is reserved for the selfish and cruel, then society decays. Respect is no longer earned through wisdom or virtue. It's stolen through fear. And when fear rules, everything of value begins to rot. The solution is not to remove danger, but to reclaim it. Good men must learn to be dangerous too, not for destruction, but for defense. A father training to protect his family, a worker standing against exploitation, a citizen resisting corruption. These are examples of righteous danger. In fact, the man who can fight but chooses peace is far more respected than the one who cannot fight at all. His power comes from capacity, not from compulsion. His authority is rooted in choice, not in fear. That distinction changes everything. Think of leadership again. The corrupt boss is feared because of his title. The virtuous leader is respected because of his character. One rules by position, the other rules by presence. The latter is far more dangerous because his influence survives even without authority. And so the question becomes, how can a man possess this kind of power? Firm, dangerous, yet never corrupting. The answer lies in the rarest weapon of all, true self-mastery. It's easy to control others for a moment, but the hardest and rarest victory is controlling yourself. A man without self-mastery is like a city without walls, vulnerable to every attack. Anger, fear, and temptation rush in and take over. Machiavelli hinted that the man who cannot govern himself will eventually be governed by others. Self-mastery is not one-dimensional. It touches your body, your mind, and your spirit. Building strength without discipline makes you reckless. Sharpening your mind, but losing emotional control, makes you unstable. Claiming faith but collapsing under pressure makes you hollow. Balance across all three creates true resilience. Consider the man who erupts at criticism. His temper reveals weakness, not power. Now compare him to the man who listens, pauses, and responds calmly. The latter earns authority because he demonstrates composure under fire. His silence becomes more dangerous than another man's shouting. Self-mastery is also about resisting easy pleasures. Vices, indulgence, and cheap distractions drain more power than open enemies ever could. Each time you give in, you weaken. Each time you resist, you grow stronger. Discipline, repeated daily, is the quiet forge of dangerous men. Practical example: saving when you want to spend, training when you want to rest, studying when you want to procrastinate. These small victories accumulate. Over time, they shape an aura that others can feel. Without a word, your discipline commands respect. The unpredictable man is always respected. If your impulses control you, you're predictable. But if you master yourself, no one knows how far you can go or what you can endure. That mystery alone makes you dangerous in the best sense of the word. And so, once a man gains control over himself, the next question arises: how should he use it in the real world, where strategy often outweighs brute force? Strength can make an impression, but strategy changes destinies. A man who relies only on muscle may win a fight, but he rarely wins the war. The one who observes, plans, and moves with purpose controls the board. As history shows, intelligence multiplies power, while raw force without vision crumbles quickly. In the workplace, this is crystal clear. The loudest or most intimidating man is rarely promoted. The strategist, the one who knows how to negotiate, influence, and create alliances, rises higher. His strength lies not in volume, but in foresight. That is the kind of danger people respect long after the moment has passed. Relationships follow the same rule. Intimidation fades, but emotional intelligence lasts. The man who listens, anticipates, and understands gains deeper influence. His partner trusts him, admires him, and respects him, not because she fears him, but because he always seems 2 steps ahead. Think of a negotiation table. The impulsive man rushes, talks too much, and loses ground. The strategic man waits, listens, and lets silence work in his favor. When he finally speaks, his words carry weight. His patience becomes his sharpest weapon. Strategy is not born overnight. It grows from preparation, reading history, studying philosophy, learning human psychology. Every lesson becomes another tool. As Machiavelli suggested, the man who understands human nature holds the advantage because people themselves are the battlefield. Picture two men in a maze. One sprints blindly, exhausting himself. The other studies, maps the path, and exits calmly. The second wasn't stronger. He was smarter. That's the difference between brute force and strategy. One burns out, the other conquers. Yet even strategy needs direction. A brilliant plan without purpose is like a ship without a compass. And so, the next level of danger lies in knowing where to steer your strength and intelligence, the power of purpose. A man can have strength, discipline, and strategy, but without purpose, all of it drifts into nothing. Power without direction is like a storm without aim, loud but useless. Purpose transforms raw ability into meaningful authority. It gives weight to decisions and clarity to every move. The man without purpose follows trends, leaders, or whatever voice shouts the loudest. He becomes a shadow of others, living borrowed goals. But the man with purpose radiates conviction. Even in silence, people sense he knows where he's going, and that confidence inspires trust and respect. Purpose doesn't have to be grand or heroic. It can be as personal as building a strong family, as professional as mastering a craft, or as spiritual as living with integrity. What matters is that it exists. A man with purpose is anchored, while a man without it drifts endlessly. Think of a father who wakes up early each day to provide stability for his children. It's not ego, it's mission. His discipline carries meaning, and his family feels it. That's why he commands respect, not because of his strength alone, but because of what that strength serves. Purpose also breeds resilience. A man chasing vanity quits when the path gets hard. A man driven by mission endures storms that break others. That's why some men rise after failure, while others never recover. Purpose is the fuel that reignites the fire. Without purpose, intelligence turns into manipulation, and strength becomes blind aggression. With purpose, even the smallest act becomes strategic. That's the difference between living aimlessly and leaving a mark. Purpose is the lens that transforms danger into legacy. And so the final question emerges. If purpose is the compass, what does it mean to leave behind something that outlives you, a legacy that makes you truly unforgettable? True power isn't measured by what you achieve in the moment. It's measured by what remains after you're gone. A dangerous man doesn't live for applause or quick rewards. He lives with the awareness that every action builds or destroys his legacy. And legacy is the only thing that outlives him. That legacy can be seen in the family you protect, the principles you defend, the people you inspire. Sometimes it's not in grand victories, but in daily acts of strength, discipline, and integrity. Those who watched you live will carry your example long after your voice is gone. Consider the teacher who instills more than knowledge. He instills character. Years later, students still live by his lessons. Or the father who teaches self-mastery and respect, shaping generations beyond his own. That's legacy, not possessions, but influence. The man who sells himself for comfort or quick gain leaves nothing behind. He may win pleasures or wealth, but they vanish. A legacy, however, is forged by the moments you refuse to bend, when you stand tall even at great cost. That is remembered. Legacy is also revealed in adversity. Some are remembered as men who ran from every storm. Others are remembered as men who faced the storm and refused to break. The difference is not in circumstance, but in the strength of their strategy and spirit. Spiritual purpose ties deeply into this truth. Knowing your life is part of something greater gives meaning to sacrifice. It allows your presence to inspire and your absence to teach. A legacy rooted in spirit cannot be erased because it exists in others, not just in you. So the final question is this: are you living in a way that people respect your presence and fear your absence? Because in the end, being dangerous is not just about today, it's about eternity. By now, you understand a truth most men will never face. Respect isn't given, it's earned. Authority doesn't come from shouting louder, but from mastering yourself. And influence doesn't belong to the harmless, but to those who combine strength, strategy, and purpose. This is the essence of becoming dangerous. But knowledge alone means nothing without action. Too many men hear the truth and return to the same patterns of weakness. The dangerous man is different. He applies. He practices saying no, he builds discipline daily, and he embraces conflict as a path to growth. Respect comes when your actions demand it. Not once, not twice, but consistently. It won't be easy. Power never is. But with every choice to stand firm, every moment of restraint, and every act of courage, you rise above the invisible majority. History doesn't remember those who played it safe. It remembers those who stood unshaken. Some were feared, some admired, but all were respected. The question you must ask yourself is this: will you pass unnoticed, or will you leave a legacy? A dangerous man isn't reckless, he's incorruptible. He cannot be bought, broken, or silenced. And because of that, he becomes the anchor in a world of chaos. He's the one others rely on, the one others respect, the one whose presence changes the room. So reflect on your life. Where are you allowing fear to control you? Where are you saying yes when you should say no? These questions are not meant to make you comfortable, they're meant to wake you up. Growth begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. The world doesn't need more weak men hiding behind excuses. It needs strong men who are good but dangerous, men who carry respect in their silence, power in their discipline, and influence in their very presence. That man could be you, if you choose to start today.